You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign. KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
I am Conor McGregor, multiple weight MMA champion. I'm a fighter and I've been through many battles in the octagon. Many consider my fights in the octagon heroic, but the real life heroes are those men and women who fight to protect us every day. The real life fighters, the real life heroes, are the firefighters and police officers. These first responders are true heroes, because these brave men and women put themselves in the line of danger every single day protecting us all. The Tunnel to Towers Foundation ensures that first responders from fire, EMS and police departments who are killed in the line of duty with young children have a home without the burden of a mortgage. They are my heroes. They need our help today. I'd like to ask you to join me in donating $11 a month to support their efforts. Your $11 a month honours and supports our first responders. Please call now at 1-844-BRAVEST or visit tunneltotowers.org.
Hi, I'm Mike, founder of DollarShaveClub.com. What is DollarShaveClub.com? Well, for $1 a month, we send high-quality razors right to your door. Yeah, $1. Are the blades any good? No. Our blades are f***ing great. Each razor has stainless steel blades, an aloe vera lubricating strip, and a pivot head. It's so gentle a toddler could use it. And do you like spending $20 a month on brand name razors? 19 go to Roger Federer. I'm good at tennis. And do you think your razor needs a vibrating handle, a flashlight, a back scratcher, and 10 blades? Your handsome-ass grandfather had 1 blade and polio. Looking good, pop-up! Stop paying for shave tech you don't need. And stop forgetting to buy your blades every month. Alejandro and I are going to ship them right to you. We're not just selling razors, we're also making new jobs. Alejandro, what were you doing last month?
Not working.
What are you doing now?
Working.
I'm no Vanderbilt, but this train makes hay. So stop forgetting to buy your blades every month and start deciding where you're going to stack all those dollar bills I'm saving you. We are DollarShaveClub.com, and the party is on.
I know karate, I know jiu-jitsu, I drive like a gangster when I'm coming to see you, see you.
Hi, everyone. This is JJ, the co-founder of Good Pods. If you haven't heard of it yet, Good Pods is like Goodreads or Instagram, but for podcasts. It's new, it's social, it's different, and it's growing really fast. There are more than 2 million podcasts, and we know that it is impossible to figure out what to listen to. On Good Pods, you follow your friends and podcasters to see what they like. That is the #1 way to discover new shows and episodes. You can find Good Pods on the web or download the app. Happy listening.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is, if getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
The following program contains coarse language and adult themes. Listener discretion is advised.
It is Wednesday, my dudes.
Otherwise known as Chat Lives Matter Day, or night, I should say. Sorry, I'm used to doing an afternoon show, which we didn't do today because I've been recovering from a cold and didn't want to have the night shift suffer. But we're here, we're live. This is Rick. I'm one half of the crew. Stacey Lennox is off tonight, but you are tuned in to the Whatever Show, the opening act for Chat Lives Matter Night, here live on KLRMradio.com and now streaming for KLRradio.com, Spreaker, Live 365, Facebook, X, YouTube, Rumble, and a few other places through my guest, which we'll be bringing in just a moment. We have Jeff Reynolds, a senior investigative, Researcher. There we go. See, this is why I just usually give a name and then let you talk. But anyway, Stacey's not with us tonight. We do have a guest, though. We do have Jeff Reynolds. He's going to be connecting some dots for some of you that have been kind of keeping up with all these Hamasnik protesters. There's some dots connecting that's been happening, and he's been at the center of it. So we're going to bring him in now and let him introduce himself, and we're going to get this thing kicked off. Good evening, sir. Welcome to the program, and how are you?
Well, I am wonderful, Rick, and it's great to be here, and I'm really appreciative that you had me on tonight. Stacey and I go way back, so I am disappointed that she's not here tonight because I would have loved chopping it up with her too. But we will have a wonderful time tonight.
Definitely looking forward to it. I've been looking forward to it since she suggested this, and then you and I reached out, and then I've been reading through your articles that you've put out, and I have to admit, sir, very impressive work. Awesome. But anyway, so for those of you who may not know, he's actually with a group called Restoration of America, and that's where. And for those of you in the chat, I'll be dropping the links in a second if you'd like to keep up and kind of go through with us as we go along, and I may or may not share the screen eventually. I just haven't decided yet because you guys can't really see that stuff very well anyway. But yeah, so that's going to be what we're talking about tonight. Basically, the fingers on the strings of all the Hamasnik protesters. So. So let me get this dropped in the chat real quick for those following along over there. And actually,
I just dropped a link in.
You beat me. You beat me. See, only semi-professional around these parts, sir. All right. So anyway, so why don't you tell us how all of this started for you, and just kind of take it wherever you want to take it.
Yeah, and the first comment here in the chat is from an old pal of mine from Oregon, Alex, who was part of the Oregon Tea Party with me back in the day, and so that's how I got started, was the Tea Party movement in Oregon. And a couple of years ago, I decided to escape from behind enemy lines and move to Florida instead, and I'm a lot happier because of that. But throughout my writing career, I have spent my entire existence, my entire mission in life is to cut through the BS of the left and to cut down their false premises. So the left has all kinds of bad assumptions or bad arguments or lies that they tell about the condition of the world and how evil America is, and they base all of their movement from those false premises. And I have spent my entire career in politics trying to tear down those false premises. So that's what I do for a living, and it's my passion project. And I like cutting through BS for a living. So that's my life. Alex notes that I'm the most irrelevant person in the world. So that's a reference to way back in the day when I was the chair of the Republican Party in Portland, Oregon. You can imagine how much fun that was. A lefty blog referred to me as the most irrelevant man in Oregon politics, and then kept writing piece after piece after piece on me after calling me that, which just made me laugh. And so the moniker stuck, and now I'm no longer the most irrelevant man in Oregon. I am now Florida man.
Nice. I don't know, that moniker might not be an improvement from what I read about Florida man. Wait, does this mean all those stories are about you? Is that what that means?
Well, I aspire one day to the greatness of Florida man.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, no, it's interesting that you mentioned that you were the head of the Republican Party in Oregon. One of my good friends that does broadcasting here, I fill in for time to time, was actually the head of the Republican Party in Oklahoma for a while. And he was also
much easier job.
Well, now not so much. Back then, yeah. I mean, it was a while ago. Unfortunately, Oklahoma City's turned rather dark blue.
Yeah, Nebraska and Kansas have that problem too. You would think rock-ribbed Republican Kansas, but all the college towns have started pushing things to the left, and you see that all across America, in rural America, as well as the elite bi-coastal, blue areas where all the population centers are. They tend to get taken over by the communist movement. And it happens, that was a big problem in Oregon when I was living there. In fact, it's always been a big problem in Oregon, the urban-rural divide, where the people that are closest to the land and closest to their neighbors are normal, common sense kind of people, and the people in the cities just kind of go nuts.
Yeah, well, I mean, so the weirdest thing for us, though, right, is because Oklahoma is, all 77 counties, both the times that Trump has run so far, have gone to him, even Oklahoma County, which I was kind of surprised. But for the first time in a long time, in 2016, the district that encompasses Oklahoma City actually elected a Democratic Congress critter. So we were all kind of like, what? In Oklahoma? Are you serious? But, I mean,
yeah.
The thing is, up until recently, a Democrat anywhere else would be unheard of. Like Democrats, like in East Coast, West Coast culture, they weren't the same Democrats we had here. The Democrats in Oklahoma would have been considered a Republican anywhere else. And because of some of the very same things that you have uncovered and all of the money coming in from folks like Soros and everything else, that is changing, even in states like mine, because they are getting the more rabid influencers to come in here. And believe it or not, it always starts with some of what you would think are the best intentions, because a lot of what turned Oklahoma City blue was the gentrification. They came in and they cleaned it up and they built it up, and now they've got condos that you can buy for $1.5 million. They've got all these bike paths and all these other things that require all this taxation to be able to pay for. And then it attracts the people that like those kind of things from elsewhere. And then that just continues to build and build and build, but it ties into the same thing that we're going to be talking about tonight, because it's all the funding coming in from outside sources that are starting to influence politics and everything else everywhere. And it's just nuts.
And that's an interesting point that you made earlier about the Democrats not being the same as they were, say 20 years ago, and that's really true. And you're seeing that play out right before your eyes in this presidential election, where Biden has to play both sides. He has to play sort of the what's left of the normal Democrats who still love America versus all of the radicals who are, Sharia compliant and want to see America torn down and riot in the streets and burn down police stations. So there are two real distinct factions, and it's shocking how quickly that radical faction has risen. I mean, they used to be a tiny minority of the Democratic Party, even though they were always, leaned towards Marxism. They never really fully embraced it. And it's just within the last 5 to 10 years, I would say, that they have fully jumped in with both feet on the most radical beliefs. And so somebody like Biden, who grew up as the old time racist Democrat, now has to embrace both sides and figure out how to thread that needle. And it's fascinating to watch just from a political science standpoint.
Yeah, I was gonna. It has been really interesting because now I'm not gonna say that a different Democrat might not be able to thread that needle a little bit better, but watching somebody that has the IQ of a turnip try to do it has been really entertaining. I'm just saying.
I think you insult turnips, sir.
Well, I mean, I'm not a fan of turnips, so I'm okay with insulting them. I don't know about you.
That's a fair point. They're kind of bland.
I mean, does anybody actually like turnips? I don't know. Anyway. Somebody watching this right now who likes turnips just turned it off, but that's okay. All right.
You insulted the one guy.
I'm never turning this network on again. You insulted turnips, sir. All right.
Anti-turnip radical.
But no, it's just interesting because, and it's funny because Stacey's brought up this point before too, and that is, George Soros was one thing. Alex Soros is a completely different animal. He's the one,
man.
And he's the one.
You're not kidding.
He's the one kind of running all the funding and everything now because Soros has kind of taken a back seat, and it's just like I remember back in the day when Glenn Beck called him Spooky Dude, and I honestly thought that dude might be the actual Antichrist. I'm not even trying to lie about it. I really thought I was like, someday we're gonna find out that's him. I'm starting to think it might be his son.
Stranger things have happened, I guess.
Oh, but anyway.
No, but Alex, I mean, so just to kind of review on that, I wrote a book a few years ago about the leftist foundations and the billionaires that are funding all the radical movements. And so...
you mean this one?
To go back and kind of...
That one?
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. Yes. It's called Behind the Curtain, and it's available at my website where it says buy my book, so please do so. It was several years ago now that George Soros, who made all his money as a uber capitalist, as a hedge fund manager, made billions and billions, tens of billions of dollars throughout his career. And he bequeathed 14 billion of his $18 billion fortune to the Open Society Foundations, which are his two main funding vehicles for radical causes. And so he's got more money than, or not he anymore, but Alex Soros, the son running the Open Society Foundations, has more money than they'll ever know what to do with if they stick to traditional charity roles in the 501c3 world. So they can do, I mean, the point of my book was that they're spending already billions of dollars a year on social causes, social justice, and all of the radical stuff that has transformed our politics. But now, even back then, they had the threat of tens of billions of dollars, and now it's even worse with several other billionaires jumping in, foreign governments jumping in. In my report for Restoration of America, I reveal, I didn't break any news here, but I go into extensive detail about how the nation of Qatar, which sponsors Al Jazeera, also hosts the heads of Hamas, who live high on the hog in that nation, also spend billions of dollars on American universities. And those universities where foreign money has had a significant influence are the ones where there's a direct correlation to higher incidents of hate crimes, anti-free speech demonstrations and anti-Semitic incidents on campus.
Yeah, sorry. I was getting caught up in the chat. So your friend Alex asked a question. He's like, who's more likely, the Antichrist, Elon Musk, George Soros, or Alex Soros?
Well, at least Elon Musk has a sense of humor. Those other two guys don't have a sense of humor.
Yeah, the thing about Elon Musk is, and sorry, I don't mean to bust out my theology degree, but there's a very specific place the Antichrist is supposed to come from, and Elon Musk doesn't qualify. Soros would.
So he doesn't come from South Africa?
No, he does not. No.
Okay.
But no, I don't know. I mean, other things have been mistranslated, so maybe they got that wrong. I'm just saying.
Yeah. Maybe like the Mayans and the 2012 prophecy. Oh, we missed it by a decade. Sorry.
I still think that it's kind of like that whole. Remember Mel Brooks making fun of the 10 Commandments, and there used to be 15. I'm kind of thinking that's what happened. I think the Mayans had another stone and it broke.
Yeah, there you go.
Somewhere on the bottom of that it says, "Please see Stone 2," and nobody could read it. I don't know, but anyway. But yeah, no, I mean, so the thing about this stuff is, and Stacy's talked about it before. It's like they with all this funding and stuff, they give the illusion of these different groups, but it's real. And she's talked about this. She's done articles on PJ Media. Mm-hmm. We've talked about it when we were doing the morning show, that it's like the same people being bussed around from place to place to place, and they're changing shirts and stuff while they get there, so they look like completely different groups, and it's just.
Dude, well, they're coordinated too. That's the other thing. Is I mentioned this in my book when I was no longer the chair of the Multnomah County Republican Party in Portland, Oregon, but it was 2016 when Donald Trump got elected, and they started rioting in the streets of Portland because, of course, that's what they do on a Tuesday at 3:30. There were multiple. At the time, I was also driving for Uber on the side, so I got to talk to other Uber drivers, and they talked about how they had driven protesters from Seattle to Portland, and they were told, we were told to go to Portland because we know, or we had enough protesters in Seattle and they needed reinforcements in Portland. So they ordered them Ubers for several $100s to get them from Seattle to Portland. But they were under orders from whoever it was that was coordinating all that stuff. So this stuff is not organic in any way.
No, and that's the thing. They try to make it seem like it's an organic thing, but it's just not. And if you start peeling back the layers of the onion, you figure out all the funding really comes from a couple of different places, and
right.
It's just weird to when you really start digging into it. Because when I first started doing this, so many years ago, everybody thought I lost my mind, and it was like, oh my God, you're getting tinfoil hat, you're turning into Alex Jones, you're doing this, you're doing that. Look, you can like Alex Jones, you can hate Alex Jones, but he's been right a hell of a lot more than he's been wrong. I'm just saying.
Well, and I've stayed away from the gay frogs, but I will say that, the other stuff, like, the stuff you can actually prove on an IRS 990, the funding that's going to all these foundations, that's easily accessible if somebody just wants to look. The problem is you spend a day looking at all this stuff and your brain starts smoking, and then you need to go lie down for a while. There's so much information, and it's just overwhelming how much information there is if anybody actually wants to look at it.
Yeah, the problem is normally my brain starts smoking, and then eventually I start smoking, and then I want Cheetos. Oh wait. Wrong show for that, Rick. Calm down, bro.
There is, and that's at least there's job security for me, because there's a never-ending fire hose of information about all these people that are funding all these things and the connections. And getting back to my report, it's the connections to the actual terrorist groups, the BDS movement on campus, which is an outgrowth. It's an actual operation of the Palestinian front groups for Hamas. The PFLP or PLFP. People for the Liberation of Palestine, those kinds of groups, PACBI, all of those groups that were formed in Gaza and in Lebanon and by Iran, they created the BDS movement, and a lot of people don't know this, and they think, well, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm just anti-Zionist, and I'm anti-Israel's government. When they are falling directly into the trap set for them by Hamas. I can't stress this enough. BDS was founded by the terrorist groups in Gaza and in Lebanon and in Jordan and all the other places that we know about, and backed by Iran. They refer to BDS as asymmetric warfare. They are calling this a part of their campaign to delegitimize Israel, to weaken them so that they can then take them over and wipe them off the map. It's all part of the same effort.
Well, and the thing that drives me crazy about the whole I'm anti-Zionist, I'm like, you are accusing them of being the ones that are trying to occupy quote-unquote Palestine. I say quote-unquote because as far as I'm concerned, it doesn't exist. But that's again, a discussion for another show. But the thing about it is, they've left them alone since 2005. They left. They pulled up stakes.
Yeah, no, they gave them the Gaza Strip and let them govern it.
It's
and
yours.
Look
you can have it. We don't want it anymore. You run it. And then they overwhelmingly elected a group whose primary existence is for the sole eradication of Jews. And then that's
in their charter.
I mean,
it's in their governmental charter to wipe Israel off the map and from the river to the sea. You know, the chant that the communists on campus have no idea what it even means, or have never looked at a map before.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite ones was they did like a man on the street interview on from I think it was Fox News, and they were talking to a couple of women that were there at the protests, and they were like, okay, so what are you guys protesting for? Well, we think the university should be more inclusive. Well, no, what specifically? Well, I don't really know. Turns to the other one. Do you know why we're here? No, not really. Well, I guess we should be more informed. Meanwhile, they're yelling, free Palestine and from the river to the sea behind them, but they have no idea why they're there. I'm like, right. The funny thing is, when you ask them which river,
it couldn't be any more obvious than that CNN reporter in Kenosha, Wisconsin, saying that it's mostly peaceful as things are exploding behind him.
Dude, that guy became a meme for like forever.
He deserved it too.
Nothing to see here. Like, I mean, you want to talk about live action role playing Leslie Nielsen being a reporter? There you go.
That's perfect. Leslie Nielsen is the perfect analogy there.
Oh, it's just, it's a gift. What can I say? All right. But no, so we actually should be taking a break soon, but we haven't really gotten into much of your material yet. So unless you need to take a break, I'm going to make an executive decision and go commercial free and let us keep going because we haven't really gotten into much of anything.
Up to you, man. I've got my drink here. If you've got sponsors you got to make happy, great. If you don't care about your sponsors, that's cool with me too.
No, I could just do a live read for the one that matters right now. So for those of you in the Oklahoma City area, if you like me have been having an issue with some pests, I live in the country, so that happens all the time. Please go find my friends at Testudo Pest Control. You can find them online. You can find them on Facebook. You can find them pretty much anywhere. So just look up Testudo Pest Control in your favorite search engine. Go find them. They have helped me with a raccoon situation. They've helped me with a gopher situation and a few other situations. And a lot of people don't like to talk about them because they're embarrassing, and I understand that. So just go find them. If you live anywhere in the Oklahoma City metro area, they can go find you and help you. They've helped me immensely, which is why I'm not only one of their customers, they're also one of mine. So anyway, all right. So that covers us. Where do you want to go next?
Okay, well, the report is 12 pages long, so there's lots to go through in that. It's just so funny to me to watch all these people that are doing the same stuff, the same tactics that they've always trotted out, right? It's the same thing as the WTO riots in 1999 that turned into Occupy Wall Street in 2011, 2012, that turned into the protests that we saw in Portland and other big cities when Donald Trump got elected in 2016, 2017. They ran us out of the parade in the big city parade in Portland. This is a funny story from my book, actually. In 2017, we were in the Avenue of the Roses parade for the Multnomah County Republican Party in Portland, and this made national news. Our chair at the time was on Fox News for this.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, so the Antifa guys sent letters to the parade organizers saying you can't have this Nazi group in our parade, and you've already seen, and they copied the police on this, and they said that you've already seen that the police can't control us, and we will take them out if you don't deny their entry into the parade. And so lots and lots of back and forth, and finally the organizers of the parade just canceled the thing altogether. And just shut it down for the entire day, because basically they were right that they didn't want to take on the police presence and all of that. I found out later on from the public information officer for the Portland police that they were ready and willing to send out divisions of police to keep the peace and to make sure that the event went off without a hitch. So the organizers basically buckled with no reason. So, but then, all of this is tied together. Yeah, that's just one example, right? This is all tied together. WTO and Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Portland, the Summer of Love in 2020, the BLM riots, the Michael Ferguson riots in 2014 in St. Louis, the BLM riots that turned into the Antifa riots in 2020 and 150 straight days in Portland. All of this stuff is coordinated by the same people. And we know this because they admitted it in Time magazine right before the inauguration of right after the inauguration in 2021. When that piece was run by Time magazine, where they admitted that they told all the protesters, stand down, we've got this under control, and we have successfully stopped Donald Trump from being reelected. So we know all of this stuff is coordinated, and so what the report then goes into is all of the financial connections and all of the philosophical connections between the BDS movement, the Palestinian Authority, the Hamas and Hezbollah, who are also backed by Iran. So there's that connection as well. There are connections to China and Russia. The Chinese Communist Party is pushing this. I've actually got some source material. I'm going to be doing a follow-up article on that. That's going to be something we got to cover as well. I've got a bunch. I've got more information that I could put in the report. So I've got a bunch more articles coming out at Restoration of America. It's restorationpac.com. Let me make sure I got that right. It's actually restorationofamerica.com/restoration-news is the proper website. And I put it in the chat. But the report goes into excruciating detail on all of these connections and who's running this. You're getting money. You're getting millions of dollars from the NFL being sent through their Inspire Change program to all these social justice groups that have adopted the Palestinian cause. So even the NFL is in on these pro-Hamas, pro-terrorist protests. What's the NFL doing?
I mean, well, I've wondered that since they picked a side on Kaepernick taking a knee.
Right.
But I mean, that's just like there's a new story coming out that actually broke yesterday, which was interesting to me because nobody seemed to know it existed until I think it was I don't remember which team it was, but they put out an announcement yesterday that they were starting a gay flag football team in their area. It was the Buffalo Bills.
Buffalo
Bills, yeah. Nobody seemed to know that had been a thing since like 2002, and I'm like, that's been around for a while. I don't know.
I loved the Babylon Bee today, by the way. The headline was "Nation Confused by Announcement by Buffalo Bills Since the Dallas Cowboys Already Exist."
Yeah, that was painful for me being a Cowboys fan, but I'll live with it.
Well, I'm a Chargers fan from way back. That's the origin of my Twitter handle. But so I found that eminently amusing.
Yeah, I mean, not so much, but I'll live through it. You know, I mean, hell, they haven't been any good since the '90s. So I don't know.
Nope. I mean, they're great in the regular season.
Yeah, and then they turn into chocoholics every single time. I mean, they're usually division champs or division runner up, and then they just screw up every single time. Every single time.
Man. At least you make the playoffs.
It's all good. Yeah, I'm more of a college fan. I'm worried about us this year though, because the Sooners just moved into the SEC, and I think we're going to have our lunch eaten for quite a few series.
I don't know if that's a good move for Texas and Oklahoma, frankly. I think they'd be much better off dominating the Big 12 and guaranteeing a berth in the playoff.
Well, I will say I think there's some movement behind the scenes to have everything kind of fold into two different power conferences, and then
that's the inevitable conclusion,
and then
right?
tell the NCAA to go F themselves. I think is where they're headed with all of this because of all the stupid rules they keep coming up with. It's kind of like,
well, I'm an Oregon Ducks fan. That's one of the few things about Oregon I like. This move to the Big 12 or the Big 10 is it's really weird, and the remaining Pac-2 is it imploded in such spectacular fashion.
Well, I mean, the same thing kind of happened with the Big 12. A lot of the schools that were in it just kind of moved off elsewhere, and then it's like SEC.
Oh, and the ACC is doomed.
I mean, ACC's on the way out. I mean, it's just. I mean, everybody forgets that at one point there was the American Football League and the National Football League, and now they're the separate divisions within the NFL, and it's still basically the same thing. It's just now they're all under the same umbrella.
Yeah, well, what this really is the Big Ten and the SEC taking over and just dominating college football as they've been trying to do for 20 years.
And unfortunately, we're letting them do it instead of fighting it. You know, for a while, everybody was like, no. They're like, oh, they're not giving up. Let's just go along. I'm like, no. Yep. Diversity matters to a point, unless you're trying to be weird with it.
Yeah, unless you disagree with me, diversity of thought is not the same thing.
Well, I mean, so that's the other interesting thing that kind of dovetails into this, even though I don't think it was something we planned on talking about, is the whole idea of with the left, they claim to be, the home for diversity, the home for inclusion, all these things. But the second you say something they don't like, you're not part of the cool kids group anymore.
Listen, they have always leaned toward totalitarianism. I remember being, even back in college in the early 90s, and I was, of course, surrounded by liberals, and they always wanted to set the rules because there was no way anybody was going to start agreeing with their stuff just organically. Oh, that's a good idea, and their ideas can never survive in the free market of thought or policy making. None of it ever works, and so they have to embrace totalitarianism to survive. Otherwise they would simply wither away.
Well, I mean, and the funny thing is, even though they don't want to see it, the market supports everything you've just said, because every time they get what they want and they try to turn a particular property to fit their narratives, it dies. If you need any other explanation than that, you need to look no further than Star Wars.
Star Wars is a great point, but that's all deliberate too. By the way, they're not trying to make money. They think making money is evil. They're literally trying to parasitize the franchise until it's a dead husk. That's their goal.
Well,
and they're succeeding.
Well, so two things with that. Really, what they're doing is they have decided that getting recognition is more important than any type of revenue stream. So that's problem number one. Because if that's your goal, then eventually recognition isn't going to feed you. So that's going to become a problem. But the other thing is, and nobody really wants to talk about this part, they are destroying everything that brings us together on purpose.
Oh, that's an obvious goal. They are they've been trying to undermine America since Woodrow Wilson and before. It's there's a direct historical line between the progressive era of the late 1800s and early 1900s and what we see today. When you just trace all of the things that they have done. You look at FDR, you look at Woodrow Wilson, you look at Lyndon Johnson, you look at even Kennedy, who was a more conservative Democrat. Still, and he tried to bring us together. He may have been the last patriotic Democrat. Because he served in World War II and he tried to bring us together, and he started the space race and brought us together like Eisenhower did in the previous administration with the highway administration. So he tried to do something just as big as what Eisenhower did to bring us together. You could say that about Jimmy Carter because he did serve, and he served admirably in the Navy, but his actions as president and even after did nothing to unite us. In fact, he's the reason we have Barack Obama. If you ever hear Mark Levin talk about it on his radio show, when they moved into the White House in the Reagan administration, he was the chief of staff for Ed Meese, the attorney general. And Mark Levin talks about this. There were boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals all throughout the White House, and they were giving them out to community organizers in big cities. And that's how Barack Obama got started in Chicago.
So it's all Carter's fault. That tracks.
Yeah. And Carter is all LBJ's fault, and LBJ is all Woodrow Wilson's fault.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into too much of it on this show, but on the Rick Robinson show, the afternoon show that I do, which is the longer format show, I've kind of deconstructed everything going all the way back to the passage of the income tax amendment, because the thing about being a registered libertarian when I first started taking things apart and putting them back together is realizing the fact that the Libertarian Party lied to you, because taxation is not illegal and it's not theft because it was done by constitutional amendment. Now, it was before, which is why they were only able to do it during the Civil War. But what nobody talks about is after the Civil War, the Democrats kept coming back to the Republicans and saying, hey, we missed that progressive income tax. We should really do something about that. So year after year after year, the Republicans kept saying no. Well, eventually the Republicans said, you know what, fine. We'll set it for this. We're going to make it 1% of income for the highest
and
earners,
it'll never go up.
highest earners in the country, and we will put it to a vote of the people. They will have to pass it by constitutional amendment, because the Republicans were like, well, surely nobody would be stupid enough to do this, so this will shut them up once and for all. And they did it.
Yeah, because they sold it, You talk about being a registered libertarian, and I've always said I would be a libertarian if it weren't for the Libertarian Party.
See, that's the other thing, because for me, honestly, so I really started getting on the scene. I mean, I've been doing this kind of stuff since 2008, 2009, but I got big enough in 2014, 2015, 2016 that we started being able to get creds to cover conventions and everything else. So SRLC 15 locally here was my first one. So I'm all thinking, I'm going to get to meet some people that I have admired for forever. And then they were like, this is the Oklahoma kid. We don't go there. Okay, fine. So the next year I was at CPAC in DC, and then I actually did get to meet some big names. But one of the things that terrified me about Trump, and one of the reasons why I could not vote for him the first time, and that's one of the reasons we do have the Libertarian Party now here in Oklahoma, is because I actually got involved in the party locally and did the whole ballot signature initiative things and everything else, because we have really weird ballot laws here. But watching him on the big screen with a room full of people pulling a Mojo Jojo impersonation scared the crap out of me. The military will do what I have told them to do because I have told them to do it because I am commander-in-chief. Mwahaha. It's like, no, that's not how any of this is supposed to work. And I get it. I have friends from New York, and they're like, you're just reading too much into his stuff, and calm down. And then, so I was never Trump until the day he was sworn in. I was like, okay, I can't root against the guy flying the plane. I've even tried that same approach with Joe Biden, but it doesn't work. But so, yeah, everybody was like, oh, you said you were never Trump. I said, well, it doesn't make any sense to be never Trump now. I don't want it. I don't want to root for him to steer us into a mountain. That right. Fight's over. But
yeah, I was a very hesitant Trump voter in 2016. I actually worked on the Ted Cruz campaign. But by the switch that flipped for me was Brett Kavanaugh. Those hearings made me so angry that I was like,
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. These people need to be defeated by whatever means necessary.
Yeah, I wasn't honestly quite there yet, because not only did I watch that, but you mentioned that you were on the Ted Cruz campaign. At that point, I was contributing, a guest contributor for American Action News, and I wrote an editorial opinion piece about, Donald Trump basically, talking trash about Ted Cruz and his wife. And I'm like, where I'm from, that would have basically had me stroll up onto the dais, wait for the cameras to be on, sock him square in the mouth, turn around, walk off, and be like, if this is the guy you want, you can have him. I'm out of here. You don't talk crap about another man's wife. Not where I'm from.
Right.
But
right.
So that was the other thing for me. But then, and my good friend Ordnance Packard, he'll be on with us here in a little bit, and then with me later tonight, made the comparison of, Donald Trump may not have been the president that we wanted, but he was actually the Leslie Nielsen of presidents, because everything you thought he was going to touch that went badly, he just managed to back into it, and it was amazing. I mean, I worked for the University.
It all comes back to Leslie Nielsen.
I worked for the University of Oklahoma at the time, and I had been there, by the time he was sworn in, I had been there for 3 years. I had gotten one raise. For the entire time that he was in office, I got a raise every year. And then everybody was like, oh, look at you. You're getting raises, so you're happy. I was like, well, if you're not getting raises, you're working for the wrong people, because this man is doing all the things the right way. The businesses are actually willingly raising their rate of pay because they don't have to worry so much about the government trying to get into their pockets anymore.
Exactly. And public policy does have a direct effect on all of those things.
But yeah, I mean, they don't like me mentioning it, because that's one of the reasons, in full disclosure, Rick Robinson is not my actual name, but there's a reason it's not my actual name. In between working for Southwest Airlines and working for the University of Oklahoma, they were like, if anybody ever finds out what you're doing, you're going to get fired. Which is another reason why I started doing this. We're supposed to live in a country that has free speech. Why am I going to get fired for giving my political opinion?
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, we live in weird times, and we never thought growing up that we would be in a situation like this. It's still, we can't just sit back and accept it, right? No. We have to fight to bring back common sense. Not common sense. I have to check myself. I don't call it common sense anymore. It's basic sense.
Yeah, I was going to say it has to be called basic sense, because if it was common sense, everybody would have it, and they don't. So I like your reasoning there. I think I'm going to steal that.
Okay.
But no, it's just, and honestly, what flipped the switch for me is because before Barack Obama was sworn into office, I ran a security firm, private investigations firm, and a skip tracing firm, all under the same all under the same umbrella.
I used to do bill collecting myself, so I've done skip tracing.
In 2008, we were pulling in, towards the middle of 2008. That was actually, 2007 was my best year. It was the first time ever that I cleared not seven figures, but a high six. And so I was feeling pretty good. And then Obama got sworn in, and all of a sudden, all these companies that had been paying me like clockwork were like, oh, we're going to push your invoice back for a month or so, and we're going to do this.
Well, and they came down on collection agencies, too. They came down on the credit industry because they adopted the Elizabeth Warren model of how credit should work.
Well, and the thing about it is, and I mean, like I said, this was before he was ever even sworn in. My company, I had 15 contracts in 2007. I had 13 contracts in 2008. By the end of 2008, rolling into 2009, I had one left. So at that point, I tried to go to work for somebody else and let somebody else run that contract. And then I realized working in the same field when you've been a business owner is really complicated, because you're looking at the things that they're doing and you're getting yourself in trouble because you're not the boss anymore. So I changed fields completely, but that's part of what started me doing this. And it all started as a Facebook page so many years ago, just because I needed somewhere to vent. Because it was nuts watching, somebody who had barely even been sworn in yet, basically tanking the economy. Nobody wanted to talk about it.
He got the Nobel Peace Prize.
For what?
I had a college friend who no longer speaks to me, who said that he was the best president in history before he was even inaugurated. He was better than George Washington, and she didn't have anything to back that up other than her what he did to her, but he was the best, and he hadn't even been sworn in yet.
Yeah, it's just weird. I mean, that's just like everybody's screaming up and down that Donald Trump was the worst president ever. Look, you can there are things that I disagree with Trump. I think he left Fauci in charge for way too long, but I kind of know why he did it, because he was trying to play both ends against the middle and thinking that if he was the nice guy, because he came in and tried to crack a bunch of heads in the beginning and everybody freaked out. So he started, well, I'll be a little nicer, because he really thought, he was going to probably be able to pull in more votes from the left than he did. But everybody seems to forget the left may be, this is honestly the most publicly fractured I've ever seen the left, because normally they fight behind closed doors and then they are completely united in public. Yep. And so this whole Israel thing is probably the most I have ever seen them fractured. And that's because they talk about that we're in a fight for the soul of America. That's not true. They're in the fight for the soul of the Democratic Party, because there's still a small remnant that is, a larger remnant that is less vocal of the Democratic Party that still does believe that America is a good country and yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. But the smaller, more vocal minority is now winning the day, because they're the ones making the most noise and they're the ones getting the most attention. And so two things are happening. A lot of people are registering as independents now, which means the Democratic base is shrinking. But it also means that the more vocal minority is becoming the majority over there, because
that's true. You're only left with the crazies, right?
I mean, when you hear Fetterman say, I didn't leave the progressive label left me, that should let you know exactly how far you've gone, because that dude didn't run that long ago as a progressive.
Yeah, as a militant progressive at that, so, from the things you could decipher from what he was saying. But, so no, I described this in the report as Biden's Michigan problem because of Dearborn and Rashida Tlaib and, all of those, all of that faction. How do you thread that needle as an addled, barely alive, old Democrat? These are problems I don't think he fully appreciates in his current state, but also that he probably never dreamt of. When he was opposing integrated schools in the 70s and opposing busing and saying that he didn't want his kids growing up in a racial jungle or an urban jungle or whatever it was he said.
No, it was racial. It was
racial jungle. That's right. Yeah. Could he have envisioned this?
No. Well, I mean, and that's the thing, though. So that's firing up the Wayback Machine. But let's go back as far as 2008. When it wasn't Rather, it was the other guy, Jennings. I think it was Peter Jennings, who did an interview with him where they called him onto the carpet because one of his biggest donors was getting favors from him. Like his house, they bought one of his houses at full market value, and then the company reimbursed the guy that paid full market value for some of the costs. And then the very next Senate session, he's pushing a bill to make their lives easier. And right. I'm like, you guys are acting like this guy is like the saint of everything, and he's probably one of the crookedest people we've ever had in politics, and that's saying
And he
something.
Always has been, and he's always been a congenital, compulsive liar, and he's always been a jerk. And there's all these things that we have 50 years of history on. He's always been a plagiarist. So when he plagiarized Reagan at friggin' Normandy,
that was hilarious.
But it's just, how do you not expect that coming? He's done it his entire damn career.
But so this is the other thing that kind of drives me nuts. And I'm looking at you, Harry Sisson, who if there was ever a living embodiment of a chihuahua as a human being, it would be Harry Sisson. But he has been seriously like posting over and over and over again, oh my God, look at Donald Trump saying this, and cutting away from stuff. And like, I'm remembering all these reels these video clips from 6.5 years ago when Donald Trump said the word covfefe and nobody knew what it was. and they're like, do you think we should? Are you guys considering the 25th Amendment? Since nobody knows what that word means, I was like, your guy can't even put one sentence together for longer than 30 seconds. Where's the media screaming about the 25th Amendment now? I mean, I don't want the commie llama any more than anybody else does, so I don't think that's going to do anybody any favors, especially because apparently now they're secretly in talks to try to, I guess, add Hillary to the ticket and subtract her, is one of the things that I'm hearing. But they've been assuming.
I saw that, and I can't even.
Can you imagine?
They've got to seriously be desperate.
Can you imagine what would happen though if you threw the black woman off the ticket?
For Hillary, who's just as old as Biden and just as old as Trump. The last time she campaigned, she couldn't even stand up straight.
I can't with these people. And, this goes back to something that I've said for a very long time. I still firmly believe 1,000% that Donald Trump was supposed to take it on the chin. And at some point, he realized he had a shot. And I think what scared him, because otherwise, Bill Clinton calling and saying, hey, you should run against my wife makes absolutely no sense unless the fix was in somewhere. Because why would you invite the guy who's going to kick your wife's ass to run? So, I mean, to me, that just never made any sense. But also, some of the crazy things that he was saying in the beginning that towards the middle he stopped doing was like, these are not the things you say when you're serious. But I honestly think somewhere along the way, he figured out, because, and this is something that I've brought up to a lot of people, imagine how much differently the Russian hoax would have played if Hillary was in office. And
if what?
If Hillary was in office, imagine how much differently the Russian hoax would have played.
Why do you say that?
The whole Russia tried to steal the election thing. If she was the one in office, imagine how much differently that whole narrative would have went. Because we now know that the FBI and the CIA were colluding all the way back since basically the moment he stepped off the escalator to try to derail the campaign. So if she was president, imagine how much differently Russia and Trump tried to steal the election would have went. Because they would have had no firewall anymore. They just ran with it. And I think at some point, probably when he got the nomination and started getting briefings, I think he saw something that they didn't plan on him seeing, because that was about the time that he really started getting serious. And I think he figured out, if I don't win this thing, they're going to lock my ass up, and I'm never going to see the light of day. I'm going to be broke. My family's going to be broke. And they may even try me for treason.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, let's be honest too. If Biden gets reelected, there's a lot more folks that are going to get J6'd and tried for not just random crimes that they make up, but actual treason too.
You're not wrong there. I wish you were, but the scariest thing about that for me is he's already told me, he's told me, you, and everybody else that was listening at the weirdest speech I've ever seen him give with the red backdrop, the American flag, and the Marines, that if you voted for Trump, you're on a watch list. How does that make you? I mean, I've been on watch list before.
The Dark Brandon speech? Is that the one you're talking about?
The Dark Brandon speech. The one where they swear, well, if the cameras would have zoomed out more, they would have seen there was red and white, too. I'm like, it doesn't matter. The only thing
the Nazis also had white in their flag.
The only thing that was missing was an armband and Hitler stash. I mean, that's pretty much where we were in that speech.
Exactly.
I'm just saying. All right. Well, believe it or not, my friend, we have come to nearly the end of the hour. So why don't you tell folks where they can find you? Let's pimp that book one more time, whatever else you want to do.
Yes, sir. So the book is at my website, which is whoownsthedems.net. That's a 2019 book that I wrote tracking all of the foundations, the billionaires, and all of the radical things that they're funding to undermine our society and our way of life in America. That sort of naturally led into me becoming the senior investigative researcher here at Restoration of America. This is my second report that I've long form report that I've put out. The first one was in January about the junk science behind climate change and global warming.
Oh, we may have to have you back on to talk about that.
It's actually even longer than this one. So that's on restorationofamerica.com/restoration-news. It's a little bit of a clunky website, but you'll find it. And then so this latest one that just came out Monday in two parts, part 2 came out yesterday, is the report on the campus protests, the pro-Hamas protests, and how they have direct ties to the worst of the foundations out there, the Soroses and everybody else, all the nasty radical fundraisers, and direct ties to terrorist groups and foreign governments as well, like Qatar, Iran, etc.
All right, and where can folks follow along with you on social media, sir?
Yes, sir. So I am currently broadcasting this live on my author page on Facebook, which is facebook.com/Jeff Reynolds Author. I'm also broadcasting it on my X account, formerly known as Twitter. And you can follow me there at Charger Jeff. And I am on LinkedIn as well at LinkedIn.com/Reynolds Jeffrey, I think it is.
All right. Well, we are definitely going to have you back, especially I hadn't even heard about the climate change report yet, so I definitely want to have you back on for that one too. But
that's a hoot, man. They're making crap up left and right. It's there's so much garbage in that science. It's amazing anyone takes it seriously.
I mean, that you're preaching to the choir on that one. The funniest thing about climate change is nobody seems to realize that it's basically a grift wrapped in dogma. So anyway.
Yeah.
All right,
absolutely.
folks. We are going to have to get out of here. We've got another show coming up next. So you guys hang out for a second. For those of you listening on the website, you'll have to F5 in a second. Everywhere else, everything's going to stay live because it's just easier because we're live for 4 hours. But we will see you. I will see you guys here on whatever next week. Hopefully, Stacey will be back with us by then, and we'll be back with some more live programming here in just a moment. Again, want to thank Jeff Reynolds for hanging out with me for the hour, even though he really wanted to talk to Stacey. Just kidding.
That's okay. You'll do too.
I'd rather talk to the hot lady too if it was me, but my girlfriend might object. Anyway. We will see you guys on the other side of this break. I'm Rick Robinson. You are listening to the Whatever Show live on KLRM Radio and broadcasting pretty much everywhere because we're secretly trying to take over the world. Back with more on another show in just a few, so stay tuned.